think India-British technology partnership can be a nice complement to what India is trying to do in the Quad. And I think this will actually lend a new dimension to India's own, global position.
This week's column, you've looked at something actually we don't read much about in India is Britain as a technology partner. Usually Britain somewhat in the AUKUS or Quad, those are the things where we think of Britain, but in the Indo-Pacific or in terms of a strategic relationship. But as a technology partner, one of the things you highlight in the piece, everyone should read it. It will be on the indianexpress.com, of course, and probably in the link description, wherever you're watching this video right now. So one of the things you say is that you highlight is how Britain is actually underappreciated in India as a technology park, particularly in civilian technologies, AI, software, things like that. And it is the lead in London, and because of the great universities in England, is also a leading innovation hub. So it's clear that if we build this relationship, what say England has to offer India, or Britain has to offer India. What is our role? What do we give back in this kind of relationship that they get out of it? Because we seem to rank at the very close to the bottom middle in most of the rankings there near the top.
Yeah. I think one of the problems with the way we think about Britain is we've still not gotten over our colonial hang-up. So in a way, the post-colonial chip that India carries, or political class, I mean, your people still writing books about the colonial age and the oppression, that kind of thing. All that was true. The life has gone on, so that tends to take away a lot of the space, and that we had this constant irritation with Britain. So you had Prime Minister Gujarat many years ago, calling Britain a third-rate power, which is completely not true in the sense Britain is still the fifth largest economy. It is a leading technology hub, great universities, higher education. At a civil society level, we have a lot of interaction, but at the political level, there were the colonial hangover, I think, it complicated our engagement. The second was the Pakistan-Kashmir question, where Britain's historic, our at least sense in Delhi that, look, Britain is tilted towards Pakistan, it is advocating Pakistan's cause, or even in Afghanistan, where it was seen as fronting for the Pakistan army. So that was one. The third, the diaspora issues. I mean, that there was this messing around. Most recently, you saw in the farmer struggle. I mean, moment something happens in India, your British Parliament is the first one to take it out. So I think these larger political complications have blinded us to the real strengths of Britain. Well, at the civil society level, people keep going to Britain. We studied there. A lot of our people do research there. Indian diaspora has done extraordinarily well. But I think now, as India looks to raise its level of, its position in the international system, Britain can become a very good partner. As we mentioned in the article, Britain is ranked very high, number 3 in the as a cyber power, number 4 in the innovation index. Biosciences, look, the vaccine, AstraZeneca, was made in Oxford, and we are producing it. So that in fact gives you some sense of the synergy. Britain has the innovation capabilities. India has some, but Indian market and bringing it together, it can be a deadly combination in the sense British innovation can scale up in India, while India can use the existing strengths of Britain to boost its own position in the international technology hierarchy. The other is the talent. Britain needs more people, technology people. And all over the world, people are really looking to India. While Indians do migrate, but I think here is another synergy. They need manpower, India has the manpower. And then we can leverage that not just to send more people to Britain, but get more work done in India, or even modernizing our universities, our technology universities. So I think there are immense possibilities here once there is political will. But I think, unfortunately, today there's a lot more political will in Delhi to think of Britain in a far more self-confident way rather than before.
So, in this thing, do you think, what the standard question, things like that, do you think whether for Britain or in other countries which are now designing themselves as tech hubs, with say tech visas becoming a big thing in certain countries where you make it easier. Do you think for either country something like that to create a sort of diplomatic ecosystem for these exchanges to become deeper, whether it is for Indians to go there or even for us to create some kinds of, like you're saying, say with a university, with departments, with certain kinds of things where you can actually have a proper partnership with Britain and not just make in India, but say think in India, which is not something that has been focused on in a realistic way.
No, exactly. And I think recently we had this announcement that Delhi and London have agreed on a understanding on migration and mobility. That India wants more talent to be able to move freely into Britain.
Yeah.
And Britain's worry was that, look, there are too many Indians coming, not the right ones, and they stay on illegal migration, people stick around. So I think that problem was why there was a lot of restrictions on Indian movement in the previous governments. So I think the Boris Johnson government and Modi government have now worked out, look, India is not going to encourage illegal migration. It's going to take back those who are illegals, while at the same time facilitating the entry of qualified people who can then become a good bridge between the two systems. And the point you said about Think India, I mean, I think in fact, in the last 30 odd years, China took a lot more advantage of Britain than India. So I think in comparison to India, I mean, I think China has taken huge advantage as China opened up to the world from the 90s. Britain and China got together quite well, and their educational institutions, movement of research personnel, technology collaborations dramatically expanded, while India became increasingly inward oriented, while China opened up and took huge advantage. And in fact, Chinese companies were really funding research in UK universities. But in the last 2 years, China is now seen as a problem, thanks to the breakdown of the relationship between US and US, UK on the one hand and China on the other. So I think there is a moment here. Britain needs partners, India can do with partners. So I think there is a historic moment here. If we take advantage of it, we can really grow, make ourselves far more consequential on the world stage.
So, this final question is sort of unreal, but, on a government level, one of the places where increasingly we are finding the need for international governance and cooperation like climate change is cybersecurity, as well as just technology regulation. One is, of course, the security aspect, but on how, and since we do have a sort of inherited legal structure, if nothing else, and a bureaucratic structure from the parliamentary system, from the Westminster model, do you think there's something that, because Britain is very seriously engaging with how to regulate technology in a meaningful way while not killing its innovation, do you think that is an area in which there can be some serious thinking together, as well as perhaps some legal, even to how to regulate technology companies internationally, which is a challenge for all countries, including both Britain and India?
No, exactly. And I think Britain and India, because we have the common legal tradition, the common law tradition in both the countries, the legal system has a lot of shared roots. And I think while there are differences, India is a developing country, so there are a whole lot of social issues which must be taken into account, while Britain is an advanced democracy. But I think there is enough common ground to use our common, pool our resources into thinking about better regulation of technology, both internally and domestically. How do you regulate social media companies? How do newspapers deal with social media companies? For example, you saw Australia when they had problems with Facebook and Google stealing their news. In fact, Prime Minister Morrison turned to Modi. So I think even Britain and European companies all have problems with the American tech giants. So I think there are going to be new rules. So I think this one of the things Britain is talking about. Let's, like-minded countries, let's get together, work on how to protect democracies from the threats of technologies, which is again what Prime Minister Modi talked about at the Democracy Summit that President Biden unconvened. And then at the global level, China is bringing a different model to the global stage, both internally in terms of how you deal with your population, as well as externally in terms of what it uses technology, how it tries to use that to dominate. So I think there is huge ground here. This is exactly, some of this is what we're trying to do with Quad as well. So I think India-British technology partnership can be a nice complement to what India is trying to do in the Quad. And I think this will actually lend a new dimension to India's own, global position.
Great, sir. Thanks so much, everyone. Do read the piece. It actually has a lot more detail as well as analysis. It's on the IndianExpress.com, and we'll see you next week.